or segments by story. Alright, you know, it's never a perfect time to do something, and you can wait around your whole life kind of getting around to stuff. So for years now I've thought of doing video memoirs. I actually started typing them out, but it just doesn't carry the same oomph. And so I'm hoping that maybe my kids or grandkids or great-grandkids will someday be interested in this stuff. And I'm anticipating it'll take me about 5 hours to barf it all out. And that's basically all the stories that my poor wife has had to hear 6 times each. And but, you know, who knows? Maybe someone will find them interesting. Or maybe they'll just go onto some old dusty hard drive that'll just get chucked in the trash. And my legacy will die forever with that. So here's the overview. I was born in Southern California to a father who was a hood, a ne'er-do-well, I guess, and a naive but stubborn California girl whose parents warned her not to marry my dad. Oh, and by the way, family secrets are coming out on this thing. So hold on to your horses. That made no sense. So, oh, and by the way, there's going to be no editing either. So yeah, she wouldn't listen. They were in their early 20s, and now I realize, you know, you're not competent enough to make a decision about marriage until like 25, I guess. If then. But see, that's the whole beauty of it, is that you're just dumb enough to go through with something that if you were to really logic it out and think it out too much, you just never go through with it. And maybe that's why people, as they get older, they become less and less likely to marry, because they're thinking about it too much. So there you go. That's kind of a catch-22. Are you young and dumb enough to get married? Because it's a pretty scary thing. You're kind of like, oh yeah, I'm going to stick with this person through the entirety of my mortal life. Yikes! But let me tell you, 17 years in, being married right now, 4 kids, it's fantastic, and I'm certainly glad I did. And I'm glad I didn't overthink it. But that's going to come later in the storytelling. So, my mom gave birth to me in a hospital with cold speculums and stirrups, which, by the way, is completely the wrong way to have a baby. When the other kids were being given to their mothers in the ward, no baby came for my mother because I had fluid in my lungs, and they had put me in an incubator or whatever. And I guess in those days they just kind of like, it was like a machine farm, you know, a baby making factory. And basically they didn't tell her. She was all drugged up, and she started to cry because she thought maybe her baby had died. So how sad is that? I don't remember anything from age 0 to 4. My first memory is sort of the salty, tanged summer air of El Segundo, California, where my parents lived out behind my mother's mother and father, Grandma Lori and Grandpa Lynn. And so here's the segments. There's that episode, and then we moved out of El Segundo up to Southern Oregon, where they had a house built out in Talent, which is a little town of 2,500, and we lived in front of a field, a 40-acre field. So that was a magic childhood. So from kindergarten to 4th grade, I lived in a small town in Southern Oregon, where the mountains past the field, to me, looked like a sleeping dragon. Like it looked like a big dragon head laid out, and that's how I imagined it from my bedroom window. Yeah, that was pretty awesome. So the summer of my 4th grade year, my father got gold fever, and we headed to Alaska. And this happened to coincide with a spike in gold prices. Gold went from something like $50 an ounce to $250 an ounce. And this has to do with what later became a topic of great interest to me, which is monetary policy, like unbacked paper money and the printing of money, which is a huge problem. But anyway, so we spent the summer in Alaska, and that is a very important 3 to 4 months for me. We lived 112 miles from the nearest civilization. The nearest civilization was a shack where they sold mosquito repellent. So we were out in the boondocks, basically. My bedroom was, they had chopped off the bed of a truck and turned it into a trailer, and it had a canopy on it, and that was my bedroom for 3 months. That I had a sleeping pad, a bedroll, mosquito repellent wicks. It was called mosquito wick or whatever. It was like a green spiral, and you burn it like incense almost, and it keep the mosquitoes away. So, by the way, that is like a whole tale, is that adventure. So no electricity, and it changed my life forever because the only entertainment was books. And when we would go to the library about every 2 to 4 weeks, and I would get a big stack of books, and that's all I would do, was read. And I became an insanely fast reader. Great comprehension, loved to read, and I think that's the best thing that can happen to a young person, is they can learn how to love books and learn to love reading. And that completely changed the events of my life. Later, when I was 34, and my father was on his deathbed, he said one of his biggest regrets, I don't remember how he phrased it, was tearing us away from the small town where we had security and taking us to Alaska. And I said, are you kidding me? That was the best thing that ever happened to me. And think about it, what if I had stuck in small town Southern Oregon? How things would have been different. Maybe I wouldn't have gone out and really explored the world. Might not have become a reader. So anyway, and that's my point. It's easy to second guess yourself and, oh, you regret these things, but guess what? Those mistakes that you make, those are the things that make you and that change you into, change you in positive ways. So it's almost useless to go back and, think shoulda, woulda, coulda. That's something my dad used to say. He said, shoulda, woulda, coulda, don't give you 10 cents to buy a donut. That was back when donuts were 10 cents, apparently. So so that's stage, K through 4, summer in Alaska. Then it was 5th grade was sort of this weird fragmented thing. I went to a school in Redondo Beach. So I was down with my grandparents again. Later on, I found out it was rocky times between mom and dad. I thought I was the golden child and that everyone just loved me and couldn't get enough of me, and that's why all the relatives were like, oh, I get him. Oh, I get him over here. No, I was being passed around, basically. But in my 10-year-old brain, that's how it was. But the truth is, I think I had a great childhood, and I was loved indeed. And until those 2 upstarts came along, I was king of the roost. Meaning until age 6, I was basically the only child of the generation. And then along came my younger sister and my cousin Susan. And those 2, they spoiled everything. I wanted a puppy, but instead I got her. Don't worry, I made her pay. So, 5th grade, half in Redondo Beach, again with libraries and learning and the whole thing. It was really quite magical. And then we moved to Southern Oregon again, and that is when we were in Ashland. Ashland is where I grew up, effectively, from the end of 5th grade to graduation. I was in Ashland, Oregon. And Ashland is a magical, magical place. I didn't realize it, but it's not like other places to be. It was like a fairy land. And so that's a giant segment of life. And then I graduated at age 18 and moved to Southern California again. You see a trend here? I moved in with my Grandpa Lori and Grandpa Lynn. Aha, see another trend there? Wait a minute. So they took me in for the summer right after I graduated. And I was a security guard at Circuit City. And I was, hold on. Oh, and I had a 6-pack and a tan. Like, you would not recognize me. Somewhere out there, there's a picture of me with hair this long and a six-pack, and I'm tan. I'd look at home in India in this picture. So at the end of the summer, I got a Greyhound bus ticket and headed back up north, where I found out that my mom had remarried, and so thus begins the next segment of life. So yeah, there's like small segments of summers, like the summer in Alaska and the summer in Southern California when I'm 18. And then I came back up and I lived in Medford, Oregon, which is about 10 minutes north of Ashland, and a larger town, and lived out on my own. So I had roommates, and I was a complete bum. For a while there, I didn't even have a job. I just had a circuit of people where I would go sleep on their couch. And by the way, that is a lifestyle. If you find enough people where they're just letting you stay one night, you can just rotate through those people, and you never have to get your own place. It's really fantastic. Playing Dungeons and Dragons and being a complete bum. And so eventually I had lots of little jobs there, and eventually I became the manager of a map warehouse, and I saved up to go on a mission. And I was a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints from 90 to 92 in Chile. And that's where I learned to speak Spanish, and that, of course, changed my life. I went to South America and lived poor and free. It was really something else, a mind-blowing experience. And when I got back, I had several, minor types of jobs, and I went to college, getting a degree in Spanish, and that's when I met, that's how I met your mother. So I met Tammy at church in 93, and 19 days later, we were engaged. Yeah, from first date to will you marry me was 19 days. How's that for fantastic? So that's what I was talking about. Just dumb enough to go through with it. And I remember we were at the Portland Temple for someone else's wedding, and and I was I think I was 24 and she was 23, something like that. Yeah, we turned 25 and 24 the next year. Anyway, I don't know. How can I keep all these numbers straight? No, I can't. Actually, 93, I would have been 24. That's right. That's right. Oh, so young. So, how old are you, by the way?
21.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, yeah, I remember I was like kind of fretting over it because I was going to propose to her. That was in my mind. And there was an older gentleman from our ward there, Brother Woods, and I said, Brother Woods, we're in the parking lot, right? I'm like, hey, how long did you wait to propose to your wife? He's like, 2 weeks. And I'm like, whoa, it's been 19 days. I better hurry up then. So, yeah, she made me wait 4 days. Oh, by the way, all these stories are going to be elaborated on later. So she made me wait 4 days, and then she said yes. And we've been married. We were married in March of 94. And it's been 17 absolutely glorious years. I can't believe how much I lucked out. It's fantastic. So now begins the next stage of life. I was going to college full-time with a major in Spanish and a minor in political science. The minor I never completed. I ended up taking education classes because I became interested in teaching. In fact, that's what I always imagined myself doing. And I graduated in 99. It took me 6 years to graduate college. That was because of cockamamie schemes I cooked up in the meantime that distracted me. Namely, I worked at a CD-ROM company where we were making a CD-ROM game, and I also started a game shop there, which basically... So this is a period of time where my wife is trying to get me to work and do something useful. Right? And I'm like, hey, I'm going to college. What more do you want? Never mind that it took me an extra 2 years. And so in 99, I graduated. I underwent every life change except death. We moved. I well, I guess I didn't get married. I had a child, and I graduated college, and something else I can't remember. So so that's when McKenna was born. She was born in '99. I didn't want to have kids. We waited 5 years. Yeah, so I graduated in '99. Didn't have a job. We were living in a trailer in the driveway of my mother-in-law's house out in Eagle Point. Eagle Point's kind of like the armpit of southern Oregon. It's pretty desolate. It's like factories and long, square sections of road. Sound familiar? Yeah. So, yeah, it was pretty bad. It was like I had to get a job. I couldn't find work. It was, yeah. It was one of those things where eventually it got me mentally to a state where I could accept what the next thing was, which was back to California with me. I got a job as an English as a second language teacher at a struggling school in the San Francisco Bay Area in East Palo Alto, which if you're familiar with the region, East Palo Alto is the ghetto. It's the inner city. It's shooting, drugs. And the school that I went to go work at had an 80% plus turnover of teachers. That means at the end of the school year, 80% or more of the teachers would quit. And then they would have to hire entirely new teachers. It was chaos. It was just wretched. And I was there for 4.5 years. I only completed part of my 5th year. But we turned that school around. And that was an adventure. And Jonah was born during that time. Jonah was born 2 years later. And yeah, like looking back at it, I don't know how I did it. Like each thing in my life, I look back and go, I couldn't do that again. There's just no way that I could live through that. Notably, my mission in the 4 years as a teacher, that was absolutely brutal, but also wonderful. Tons of stories around that. And then I came across the brilliant idea of painting miniatures for a living. And we ended up moving out to Utah, where Tammy has family. And so we moved out here in 2004. And that's where we've been the last 7 years. And we had 2 more kids. We had Griffin and Willow out here in Utah. And that brings us to the present day. It's October 2011. And here I am. And I'm 42, and I really feel like I've lived a full life, which I know is a foolish thing to say because it's only halftime, because I've started eating better, so I'm probably going to live past 79. And quite frankly, my objective is to die on the tractor. It's to just keep working until I drop and do new and ever more exciting things. So there you go. Brief history of your father, grandfather, or great-grandfather.